So, Speedsters, The Flash, Season 6, Episode 11, Love is a Battlefield. What did I think of this episode? Well, it was a Valentine's Day episode, so it kind of invoked some cheesiness, a bit of silliness. But what I will say at the same time is interesting, because normally if you've been watching my reviews for long enough, I don't really find episodes that are filled with quite a bit of cheesiness like this one to be really on my kind of, what I like seeing out of The Flash. I prefer the more darker episodes, more serious stuff. Of course, I'm completely down with the Cisco Wells, the Cisco humor, the Wells humor, stuff like that. Even Ralph is, come down to a level of humor that isn't like what he was like in Season 4. When it comes to eccentric stuff, it's really not for me. And this episode had that, and a bit of it wasn't for me. But there was, a couple of moments where it was so ridiculous that the episode didn't take itself too seriously, like so deliberately. And I'm not saying that it hasn't previously done that on the show before, but it just felt like it was a bit more okay. Like, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that I'll let this one slide because it was a Valentine's Day episode, and I guess the moment I'm kind of most talking about right now is that moment where we had Amunet Black facing off against Goldface, and then that bit happened. That's what I mean about the very eccentric kind of cheesiness that, it's kind of Legends of Tomorrow-y. It's like, if they really do embrace it and it's so obvious, then fair enough. But I do want to get this clear, I definitely wouldn't want an episode like this every week, not at all. Last week's episode, I said I really enjoyed it. Iris was kicking ass. I feel like that they're really finding the roots of that character to stand firm in the show, especially in this season and moving forward. And this episode, it was kind of filled with a lot of filler. Some people are not calling it filler. This was filler. I guess you could say literally kind of any episode or any filler episode could be likened to that of the main story, but that doesn't mean that it's still not filler. And this episode most certainly was that. The one thing I did like is that even though this wasn't our Iris though, I still found this Iris, I guess you could say edgy Iris this episode, especially with her going into the bar and smashing that bottle over someone's head. She's still enjoyable. I'm looking forward to seeing this story continue, but for the most part, I mean, come on, Amunet Black trying to get this little thing, this device for that orchid, just it's not really, it's definitely filler. But even though this episode was quite fillery, I was still nevertheless intrigued to find out what was going on with Iris, especially after we found out at the end of last episode that she got trapped in the mirror, assumingly by Ava McCulloch just grabbing her. And I thought maybe in this episode, even though it wasn't truly, explained right now, I guess not until next week's episode, but this Iris, is she a different version of Iris? Like a mirror version of her, like kind of focusing on different aspects of her personality, like as I said, a mirror version of her? Or is it like Ava McCulloch kind of in disguise as her? But I didn't necessarily think that was the case, because throughout the episode this version of Iris knew things that only Iris would know. It is still not mega polished out, but I did know in a couple of episodes time or something like that the synopsis is like Iris is trying to figure out a way to get out of the Mirrorverse. So I knew this still wasn't technically Iris, but it was nevertheless interesting to see Barry and throughout the episode just doubt what was going on between them both, maybe that they were growing apart and stuff like that. So yeah, that all of that stuff was fairly interesting. There was a bit of an argument as well between them in terms of how Iris doesn't really want to be deemed this damsel in distress anymore. She can't really be the voice inside Barry's cow cheering him on. She's a reporter, and I thought, like, even though this is like a different kind of Iris or whatever, I thought, well, fair enough. Like, we don't want you just in Star Labs being the voice in the cow. We don't want you, basically Iris season 4, like, we don't want that. We want this Iris coming out. And I think, one thing that was nice seeing in my comment section last week, and maybe it will happen again this week, I don't know, depending on if you guys really liked this kind of different version of Iris or not, but I think the majority of us can agree that this the direction the writers and the showrunner Eric Wallace are taking Iris is nothing but good, and I feel like that line, albeit maybe not from our Iris, perfectly summed it up. We don't want Iris being that voice in the cow, and that's all she pretty much does. It's great seeing her go out with Team Citizen, even though I still feel like Allegra still needs to grow on me a bit, and Cisco's girlfriend. And that reminds me, no Cisco in this episode, no Ralph. We all knew Cisco, they basically spelled it out to us like in last week's episode that he's going away, which basically spells out that he might not be in a couple of episodes, and that's the reason why. And when he comes back, I'm sure he would have found something that will contribute to the main story in terms of what he was doing with like road mapping out this new multiverse, or like the post-crisis effects in this new universe. I really hope at least he comes back and says something like, oh, you know, in my time away investigating, I found this out, and whatever. And yet again, there were kind of more cringy moments, like where we had Amunet Black and Goldface arguing about this old vinyl or record collection, and it's just like, yeah, really? Like, as I said, I let it slide this week. I don't mind silliness like this occasionally. It's just, you know, if it goes back to like Flash season 4 levels of dose that they gave it, and this was like here all the time, then that would really probably get on my nerves a bit. You could call Flash a cheesy show, to be sure, but it's because I know it can. Trust me, I'm not a guy who wants dark or dark all the time, but like I know it can be this moderate balance of the both, and that's what I prefer. So when you see me calling stuff like this out, it's only because I come from a place of wanting a fine-tuning of both, and not like it all in one direction, or maybe too eccentric, like where you have these two meta-humans who are really still in love with each other but arguing about an old record collection on the Flash. It's not really what I want to see, to be honest, but maybe you guys loved it. You know, Amunet Black anyway, I actually don't mind her as much as other people. I know a lot of people are flaking her. Maybe it's just because I'm quite a fan of Katie Sackhoff in the Battlestar Galactica days. Maybe that is quite literally why I've got blind goggles on. Trust me, I do get it. The accent can be a bit annoying for some people, but it's just like I've always put that down to this eccentric accent and it was deliberately done. That didn't bother me. So seeing Amunet Black didn't really annoy me. The one thing that I still don't like, though, is because we couldn't have Barry running around this episode in his onesie. You know, I don't mind that so much. You know, it does suck a little bit when we don't get so much Flash in an episode, but my bigger problem is that I don't like a villain knowing the Flash's identity like this, to the point where it's like there's this like underlying, oh, we can trust Amunet even though she's a villain to not say anything. But it's like, no, it shouldn't be like that, because she's quite literally a villain who knows the Flash's identity and can reveal it to the whole of Central City whenever she cares to. Like, literally, she could do it tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the week after next. But she's not going to, because that would ruin a lot of things or create this whole other plot that we don't have time to explore in episodes. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, maybe that's a little gripe, but I just find it, you know, realistically, would Amunet Black really keep that, you know, in her head secret? No, I don't think so. But other than that, there's not really too much else to say about this episode other than up until the point where Iris kind of teamed up with Amunet Black to get that device, which was the, or, you know, or she already had it. It was like this miniature biome simulator, but that's when Goldface came to take it. As already said before, this was when we had that cheesy moment with the staff, and then the Amunet kind of taunting him like with her fingers, and then like we had you know, Goldface get his chain and like swing it around, and I just thought, really, like really I don't know, yeah. And then we even had Barry do some couples therapy himself between Amunet Black and Goldface. So yeah, and then that whole like chemically gassy thing came out from the plant, and then they were like reading each other's minds, which their pure thoughts, or true thoughts should I say, were really confessing their love for each other. And I just thought, you know, it is what it is. It didn't annoy me as much as what I would have if you would have told me like, hey, this is going to be in an episode. Hey, that's the stuff you don't like about some CW things when they really shine on this stuff. But I'm not as wound up as what I thought I'd be. It wasn't as bad. But another thing that kind of reminded me in this moment, guys, to talk about is when Barry was suited up. Do you think that they're trying to spell that he's more supercharged with power now? Because recently, to use like those lightning bolts or whatever with his hands, he just kind of like shoots it out like a gun. He doesn't have to like run around in a circle and like charge himself up. Last week, was it last week? Yeah, when he was in the prison cell with Diggle in the Argus cell, he like had Speed Force lightning around his hand, just when he got a little bit angry. So it just kind of makes me think, are they trying to like whatever Oliver did as the Spectre, where he said he touched Barry's forehead and he's unlocked his true potential, is this a spin-off from that? Because it makes me feel like Barry is kind of extra powerful now, and they're dropping little seeds or hints here and there. I could be reading into that too much, but you never know. You never know. It could be like an extra thing they may factor in at some point down the line this season. And for now, they're giving us little teases. But to cut to the chase, at the end of the episode, we had Iris basically really wanting to get out of the mirror when she saw this other Iris hugging her Barry. So Iris is very evidently still in the mirror. This isn't like our Iris, even though she knows many things that our Iris does know, but at the same time can speak like Italian and stuff like that. Either way, I was actually happy they included these things in the episode, because it kind of tied it back to, oh yeah, don't worry, we're getting back on track next week with the whole Mirrorverse stuff, which I can't wait for, to be honest, because, you know, I feel like this episode was expected almost to a degree, just in the sense of it's been going really solidly on The Flash recently, before Crisis and after Crisis, that a filler-esque episode with a bit of silly comedy and stuff like this was bound to happen at some point, and I feel like we're going to get back on track next week. Yeah, we're going to learn a bit more about Ava McCulloch, but not only that, we've also got Sue Dearborn coming as well next week, which maybe you've seen in the trailers for next week, which I may be showing in the video right now. I'm definitely looking forward to that episode, especially exploring more Iris Mirrorverse stuff. But also in this episode, to end this review off, we had another thing that I can't really explain, but yet again, The Flash, even in an episode like this, set me up with some more intrigue for the following week. Like, I'm going into next week being like, oh, what is going on? That is with Nash Wells seeing this other Wells at the end in Jitters, and for a second I thought, wait, is that Eobard? But I don't think it was. Like, well, not Eobard Thawne, but the original Wells, but I think it's meant to be Harry. But if you ask me what's going on here, I have absolutely no flipping idea. Like, what could that mean? Is it some post-crisis residual weird multiversey frequency stuff that's making him see this other version of himself? It's like, really? How does that work? And why is this even happening? Is this another Wells who he has some kind of hit? I don't know. It's such a mystery. So I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below there, guys, because there's a lot of stuff, and I love it when the Flash does this, because I'm not saying this is going to be a massive overarching plot or whatever like that, but it's something that's got me wondering, and I don't have any answers for, and that's what I love when it comes to the Flash. Because, hey, who doesn't love a little mystery, especially regarding a Wells? Other than that, I didn't really speak about the whole Allegra and Caitlin Frost Valentine's Day stuff, because what's there to say? Frost was helping Allegra out with some ex-boyfriend band stuff, and Nash helped Frost out with that because essentially he is Allegra's parent, but not literally, because it's another version of Allegra. But you know what I mean. There's not much else to say there. It wasn't really that interesting, at least for me. But all in all, everyone, I would love to know your thoughts on this episode down in the comments below. Just let me know your thoughts on everything. Did you feel like this episode, even though it was a bit fillery, did you still really enjoy it? Do you feel like it was a bit cheesy, but the fact that it went to almost Legends of Tomorrow levels of cheesy, was it kind of a bit funny, to be honest? Because that's how I felt. If it went that far, and it's like, wow, it really is kind of a bit of a piss take, to be honest. But yeah, that is absolutely everything I've got to talk about with this week's episode of The Flash, guys. A bit of a in-between episode, but yeah, if you enjoyed this video, guys, go ahead and like it. Make sure you subscribe to never miss out on a future video of mine. You can click on my past couple of videos appearing on screen around here, but thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.